moving to our next presentation, programs and practices.
And Quentin Brown is going to lead this discussion.
Okay.
So, Mr. Superintendent, can you take us through where we're at with time
Yes,
and
thank you
items
so
on the
much.
rest of
So
the agenda, please?
we did make a, so we're going to go into this next item on activities we're working to close the achievement gap. Then we're going to go into the education services. Then you may choose to take a break. We've rescheduled Parent University for another time.
Okay.
And then we'll end with a collaborative co-teaching model.
Okay.
So,
And can you give us approximate times, Mr. Superintendent?
yeah, we should be, if we stay on task, we should be done by 5. I have a meeting at 5. We should be done by 3:30.
I gotta pick up my little one too, so. Okay.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon and happy holidays.
Good afternoon.
Distinguished Board of Education members, President Dr. Williams, Superintendent Steinhauser, and executive staff. My name is Quentin Brown. I'm the program administrator working out of the Deputy Superintendent's office, and I'm here with my esteemed and talented intervention program leaders, and I'll introduce them in a few minutes. You okay, Cliff? All right. Okay. The purpose for today's update is twofold. We're going to provide you some key information on district-sponsored intervention programs that are closely tied to our strategic plan and initiatives and the closure of the achievement gap. And we'll also share some district efforts to create a systematic approach of sharing best practices from various district-sponsored intervention programs that serve and support our underrepresented students in the district. I also like to just make a side note that I want to acknowledge all the intervention programs that have been created at the site level because they're doing a tremendous job out in our district. So I want to make sure we're not leaving them out. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to hear from some wonderful individuals, Dr. Kimberly Johnson, Mr. Michael Crowder-Jones, Mr. Terrence Bryant, Mr. Chris Barunda, Mr. Cliff Parks, Mr. Lionel Gonzalez, Mr. Alex Chavez, and the wonderful Miss Doris Robinson. And I want to give a special acknowledgement to Robert Tagorda because a lot of the leaders of our intervention programs work out of the Equity Access College and Career Department. Okay, anything we do in the Long Beach Unified School District should be tied somehow to the overall strategic plan, and all of our intervention programs definitely support those goals, and especially goal number 1, which is ensuring equitable opportunities for every student. Goal 2, providing a safe, welcoming, respectful, and rigorous learning environment for every and all students in our school community. And lastly, goal number 3, which is to promote academic and growth for every student in our district. So you're going to hear from the intervention program leaders. We'll have them speak for 2 to 3 minutes just to give you kind of an update on their programs. You've looked at some of the data that they presented to you last year, but they want to give you an update on their programs. So at this time, I'm going to call up Dr. Kimberly Johnson to talk about her leadership over her programs.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Kimberly.
Okay, first I'm going to talk about the Long Beach College Prep Academy. So the Long Beach College Prep Academy was created in 2012, and Long Beach Unified School District, along with the College Blueprint, which are our partners, came together to develop this program for students that are traditionally underrepresented. So basically our students, our 10th grade students, apply in 10th grade, and they work with the College Blueprint for approximately 2.5 years, all through their junior and their senior year, so that they are receiving intensive college personalized support, career and college planning, workshops, SAT prep, and scholarship and financial aid research, essay writing, resume development, and so on. So basically, the program is for our very high achieving students so that they can possibly apply and be accepted, which they are, to some of our very prestigious schools across the country. So we've had students be accepted to Harvard, to Stanford, and UCLA, among others. So our next program, well, my next program, is the Coalition of Involved African American Parents. And so this program, as you know, is to support and encourage our African American parents and to engage our parents in training and allow them the opportunity to learn different strategies and techniques to be partners with our schools. So some of the things that our schools, our families participate in is, again, parent training. And while our students our parents are meeting and being trained, they bring their children along, and we meet typically at 6 o'clock. And we have certificated math instructors that tutor our students so that their parents can meet. So they tutor them in math. And after each meeting, we have a needs assessment for our parents so that our parents can give input on exactly what they need to be trained in so that we're not making assumptions on exactly what they need. So our next program is the Young Achievers Program, which we talked about last year. And it's for fourth and fifth grade students, and it provides them an opportunity to learn about African American history and about their cultural background. So we meet at Signal Hill, and this year, let me just give you a little update on what we did this year. We included field trips. So our students were able to visit Loyola Marymount University, and I kind of paired it very similar to our College Promise tours. So I identified a student at LMU, and they took them around the school and shared their college experience and showed them around to the different buildings at Loyola Marymount University, and they really enjoyed that.
Was this one of our graduates at LM?
Yes.
Awesome.
As a matter of fact, he graduated from the Long Beach College Prep Academy.
Awesome.
So I try to utilize our students as best as possible so that we can have a framework, so the students have a framework of where they can be. Okay, and the next program is the Female Leadership Academy.
Dr. Johnson, can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
How do you identify your fourth and fifth graders? Is it a geographic or is it representative of?
It's geographic and based on their test scores.
Okay.
So what we like to do is make sure that the students are able to read and access the information because it is fourth and fifth grade curriculum. So,
Great, thank you.
so Female Leadership Academy is to empower and encourage our young ladies to see themselves in our society. So we have over 600 girls in elementary, middle, and high school, and some of the activities that they have been involved in the past year. Career and college exploration, which is every year, so they'll be going to up north to see about 12 different colleges and universities in April. And they also we train them every day, or well, some of them every day because we do have classes for our ethnic studies curriculum, but we work with them on leadership and how they can become leaders in their community, in their school. So a lot of our girls are working in student council, and they do outside community service with Ronald McDonald House on Saturdays. And very recently, we started a peer tutoring program with Cubberley, and this year, we're gonna start with Prisk. And the girls go in and work with the students with math and with reading, wherever they need help. And very recently, let me just say this really quick, we had a Female Leadership Academy Wellness Symposium at Long Beach City College. So that was absolutely fabulous. The girls were able to learn about how to manage their anxiety because they're taking a bunch of APs and how to manage that. And we had girls that came back as alum and served on a panel and so they talked to them about what they need to do and what they're doing now and how they manage in college and beyond.
Dr. Johnson, so
Yes.
is this an actual class at some schools, like the Mel Leadership Academy? Or
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, we have classes and clubs.
okay.
So, and we work on the ethnic studies curriculum that we created about 5 years ago.
Great.
And then lastly is SAT prep, which we are in full SAT prep season right now. And this is a program for up to 850 students at the 6 comprehensive high schools where it's on Saturdays. And they learn different strategies on how to improve their scores on the SAT exam. So they meet for 8 Saturdays and they work on SAT prep strategies and with in conjunction with our college blueprint again.
And I know you said it's at the comprehensive high schools, but it's open to our students who are
Absolutely.
at our high schools as well. So
It's
that-
open to all high school students. We even have some EPHS students this year.
So they can just go to the one that's geographically closest to their house?
Yeah, we
Okay.
try to place them in the school, their home school that's closest to them.
Great, thank you.
And it's all Saturdays?
8 Saturdays. Mhm. Okay, thank
Thank you,
you.
Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's my honor and my pleasure to give you an update on the Math Collaborative at David Starr Jordan High School. It's also a privilege and an honor to work at David Starr Jordan High School. It's what I enjoy doing. But before I give you an update, I'd like to introduce you to Mrs. Roberta Jenkins, who has really been a strong supporter of our program since its inception, and I wouldn't be involved in the program if it wasn't for her. In addition to that, our parent coordinator, Mrs. Carche Chess, a very, very special person, parent at David Starr Jordan High School, who I saw how active she was there and said, would you come aboard and help us with our parent engagement component? So I would like to thank them first for being here, first of all, and for their hard work. When I first became involved with David Starr Jordan High School Math Collaborative, I wanted to put a dent. My goal was to put a dent in the pipeline to prison, drugs, gangs, and reduce the number of D's and F's these young men were getting. First of all, we had to look at parent engagement because I don't think parents know how powerful they are. Extremely powerful. And through our parent engagement component, we developed this year what we call intervention conferences, which are very similar to retention conferences in elementary school. We have the parent, the student, the intervention counselor at Jordan High School, as well as our parent specialists, to come to the school. And if they can't come to the school, we go to their homes. And we sit and have a conference with them. The students set 3 goals. 3, if they meet their goals, 3 awards that they can get for achieving those goals, and consequences if they don't achieve those goals. We monitor them regularly, but within a 30-day framework, we revisit that to see if they're achieving. If they're not, we continue to engage the parents. The intervention specialist and counselor go to the homes on Saturdays, knock on doors. We've even had parents who prepare breakfast for them so that they can engage them. So when I listened to Dr. Pedro, and I can't pronounce his last name, he did say, first of all, you have to engage the parents. You have to treat it like it's a family. We treat them like they're family. We tell the parents you have a home, we tell the kids they have a home family, they have a school family. You do not leave your family when you leave home because we are the eyes and ears of the parents. So he also said you have to feed them. We do feed them. We have a partnership with Chick-fil-A and some others, and We feed them. That's the way we get them in the door. They like to eat. These students, after goal setting, we produce a newsletter monthly or twice every 2 months. We produce a newsletter which engages our parents. I hope you have that newsletter. I hope you've seen it because this is our communication tool with parents. Another key component for us are partnerships. We can't do this job alone. So the National College Resources Foundation, we have embraced them, they've embraced us. We have male mentors who go into the classroom to support the students and the teachers academically and behaviorally. I thank Jordan High School teachers for allowing us into their classrooms to assist them with reducing the number of D's and F's those kids are getting so they can become successful. They also deal with the social and emotional mentorship of these young men because they come with a lot of trauma sometimes and they need another male to talk to. So that component is also a part of what we do. I've engaged the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and they are developing a course called Manhood 101, where they will be teaching our young men how to be productive citizens. Also, we engage our alumni. We keep in touch with them. Once they graduate, we make sure they're on task, they're doing what they're supposed to, and sometimes, most times, I don't have to contact them, they contact me. Speaking about the construction issue, we do have a young man who is in construction. The college and career component is very key to our focus. It's not just about college, it's about career. He comes to me regularly sharing videos in his excitement about being in construction. He tells me he's making $25 an hour at 20 years old, he has benefits, and he has opportunities for advancement. So we're extremely proud of him because that's what he enjoys doing. In addition to that, we have also engaged our coaches. Our coaches tend to want their athletes with them. But they are now coming to me to say, I want this student in your program. Because if we work in partnership, the student is academically ready and qualified to participate in sports. But if they're not, then they can't play. So we monitor through School Loop to make sure these athletes are doing what they're supposed to do. And finally, I brought the coaches on board. The key component for us is our strategic plan. How do we plan strategically to make sure our students are successful? So I, once again, have a partner who volunteers to do a strategic plan for us every year free of charge. We do our logics model, we do our SWOT analysis, and we engage the entire staff in terms of where we are now, where we're going, and how we get there. Thank you very much. I'd just like to say I'm a proud parent of Long Beach Unified School District students who started here from preschool at Long Beach City College Preschool all the way through high school. And my daughter has an MD, and she will get her PhD in January. So you guys did a great job in educating my daughter. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Doris. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Myself and Mr. Bryant will kind of echo some of the same sentiments of Mrs. Robinson. We service Cabrillo and Wilson. We both started 2.5 years ago. We're in our 3rd year, and we currently are servicing 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students. Between both our programs, we service approximately 150. By the end of next year, we'll be serving 200 in all grade levels. I want to remind you of just our student and what they look like, and then Mr. Bryan is going to talk about new advancements that we have in the program. So we're looking at students that are between 1.8 to 3.0 GPA, young males of color, and we're looking at GPA, and we're looking at math scores, and we're also looking at test scores for math. So we're looking at PSAT, SBAC. If a student has a lower GPA but they have a higher SBAC score, that'll be a student that we target, or a higher PSAT score. And if they have a higher GPA and maybe a lower score, we'll also look at those students. But we're looking at young males of color once again. And Mr. Bryant is going to talk about our updates.
So hello, it's nice to see you all again. Good afternoon. So some of the updates, our programs, one of our program main focus is STEM exposure. So one thing that we were able to do, one of our biggest updates is we was able to partner with the Bob Barbosa Space Center. So I would like to thank Dr. Williams for introducing and connecting us to the Bob Barbosa Space Center. So through this connection, the Math Collaborative was able to create and utilize the opportunities that the Bob Barbosa Space Center has to offer. Our students are being trained as junior astronauts, engineers, and also trained in aviation. Our Tiger teams are specifically math-based, since we are the Urban Math Collaborative, and then we look at the math in all these different departments and all the different components of these departments. Last Friday, our students were actually able to build and code a computer from scratch, which was really amazing. We got to see them go through that process. So with that, we try to expose our students in every aspect to STEM and STEAM, and then also we started to take under this idea of STEAM++, which is also teaching language, because we look at computer language and world language. So the Barbosa Space Center, we're in our second session, and we do project-based learning, where each project, they'll be looking at the math in those different fields. We also have our after-school tutoring program that we both run at our respective sites, and in that, we offer math tutoring, and then we also develop the continuous development of math literacy in algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and calculus. We have math teachers that volunteer their time at each site that help to tutor, and then we also have student tutors that are proficient in algebra 2 and calculus that also volunteer their time to tutor our students. We have a mentorship partnership with UCI's EAOP program, and they come in and they serve our students doing transcript analysis, because we want to make sure that all our students are A through G eligible. So they do transcript analysis, make sure they're on track for A through G, and they've been in partnership with us for 2 years. Well, this is their second year, so we're really thankful to have them. Ms. Robinson, because we do grade tracking. So we're on School Loop consistently doing grade tracking, dropping in classrooms, monitoring students, contacting parents, because as she stated, which it never fails, the parents are the focal point of our program. Without the parents, this work would be extremely hard to do. And then we also have been we're going to be going on our first field trip to UCI this second semester for engineering conference. It's a national engineering conference. So again, we really are looking to expose our students to different STEM fields, and it's not necessarily that they have to be in or choose a STEM field when they apply for college. We just want to expose them, because that's the way our world is heading.
Quick question, gentlemen.
Yes.
Because we are emphasizing these intervention-based approaches, and tracking is a big piece of that. Is student retention the biggest challenge that you have? And if so, do the students start off in the 9th grade?
Yes.
Yes.
What do we do for those students that, for whatever reason, leave 9th, 10th grade, or do we have like a pool of students that then we replenish those? Like, how does that work, right, given the challenges with retaining students through these kinds of opportunities?
Yes, so we actually do have a pool of students. At the respective sites, retention is a little different. At Cabrillo, student retention is a lot more difficult because people are exchanging schools. But we do pull from, so we have our qualified, we recruit in 8th grade. CJ and I, we go out and interview students. And then so we keep our list of 25 students at each, 25 and 25 at Cabrillo and Wilson. And then we have we are reserved basically another 10 students just in case. And then so we let those parents know and the students know that they can still participate in program. However, we're not collecting data on them. Yeah, we're not collecting data on them because they're not a part of that 25. So when and if students do leave, what we do is we pull straight in, and then we have the parents do all that. So yeah, good question.
And we're in the first cohort if it's three and a half years in? So this will be your first cohort?
Next year.
Next year is our first graduating class.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Can I respond to that? One of the things we did, if a student stayed
Microphone.
within the Long Beach Unified
Doris, microphone.
One of the things I did, if the student remained within the Long Beach School District, we didn't lose that student. Now that at Wilson and Cabrillo, I would contact them, they move into their program. But if they're at Milliken or Lakewood, then I still visited those students because we didn't want to lose them. One of the things I remember when the Office of Civil Rights came in, one of the things the guys asked me, did you lose those students once they went to another school? I said no, because I go to that school to continue to track that student, check on that student, so we don't lose them. And that was a positive response for them because they didn't want us to lose those students. Okay.
That's why I was careful. I didn't use the word lose. I said when the students leave.
Right.
And then also we want to model Mrs. Robinson's strategy of having the students come back after they graduate and follow them through their four-year college process as well.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your parent engagement, because I saw a lot of that when I visited your program.
Yeah, so our parent engagement, we actually developed something called a PAC committee, which is a parent advisory committee. So basically what that looks like is we contact parents, we find some of the most dedicated parents, and then we actually have them be a part of the process, because we look at it from a needs base. So instead of us deciding what the student needs all the time, we want to get perspective and insight from the parent. Because the parent is with the student and is also in the community. So we want to make sure the parent speaks on behalf of the student, the parent, and the community. So what we do is we have parents that volunteer, they call our other parents, we host meetings, we have little workshops for the parents throughout the year to really get them involved, because parent involvement is very, very key. So what we try to do is we try to keep a constant line of communication. We both contact our parents weekly, and sometimes more than once a week, just to kind of really keep touch bases, right? Keep a strong line of communication, because we know without them, it's difficult to pull that student in week after week after week through the door. Even though for our freshmen, we do have classes. So he has a class at his site, I have a class at my site. But for our sophomores, juniors, and then upcoming seniors, that is all volunteer based. So that's how we call it a push-pull method, where the parent is pushing the student through the door and we're pulling them through. And that's how we tend to work.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're still, okay.
Good afternoon. I know it's been a long day, so I'll be brief. I just want to tell you a quick story about one of the proudest moments of my 20-year career. A couple of Saturdays ago, I was at Cal State Long Beach. I was attending the culminating event for the Ethnic Studies Initiative, and I was on this stage, and I was looking out at a group of 350 students, and 250 of them were from LBUSD, and I was telling them about these inspiring people out in our community, teachers and educators, parents. And then I turned to them and I said, hey, there's this other group that's really inspiring as well. Do you know who it is? And they shouted out, it's us. And I said, absolutely, it's you. It's really difficult sometimes. You turn on the radio or you turn on the television and it's easy to get down. We live in a very challenging environment. But what's even easier when you look at our students and you hear about our students is to get inspired. And so that in that moment, I was so inspired and so pleased and so proud of what they're doing. The Ethnic Studies Initiative is in its 5th year. Each year, about 400 students take a class. This year, we'll have about 475 complete a class. It's not perfect, but when I think about the vision, of course the students are becoming more prepared for college, and of course they're becoming more culturally aware, and of course they're becoming more able to engage in discourse, and that's really important at this moment in our history. We're getting better. We think about continuous improvement a lot, and so we're thinking about ways to improve. So stay tuned, but I think we're doing really well so far. Any questions?
Where are we at with conversations at our state level about requiring ethnic studies in our high schools and colleges?
Yep, so it's ongoing, and I would say that it's one of those things that gets argued over and discussed, and when the greater community is searching for proof points, we're one of them. It's not hard to look at Long Beach and Norwalk, La Mirada, and the other districts that are engaging in this work and say, wow, that's some really great work going on. During the presentation, as Dr. Benitez knows, they pointed out one student who was going to complete 5 courses before graduating. And how inspiring, how amazing. And I think that's not going to be every student, but it's going to be some students, and it's something to be inspired by.
And it was, I won't say who the student, I won't give away from the student, but that student will come in with 2 semesters of work already done, right, at the CSU level. Yeah.
And it's great to think about how much that means to that student, but as that student inspires others, but from a financial standpoint, how much money that student saved and his family saved, which is.
And you may have heard at the state level there was some controversy over the ethnic studies framework, and so that's going back, and will come out probably later this year. And that's one of the guiding principles has to be put forth first before they go some other routes.
Yeah, I think we're just really beginning to see the impact of this program on our students. And the data out there relative to ethnic studies is extremely positive on its impact on students. So this partnership is key, very important, and it is doing so much to change the landscape for a number of students in this district. So thank you.
And just, Dr. Johnson mentioned it briefly, but that in the work that she's doing, she's also has an ethnic studies component for some of our younger students that sets the stage for them to be really successful and really interested in what happens at the high school level. So it's again about taking those pilot programs and how do we take those small things and incorporate it in other places that eventually maybe every middle school would have that option as a, So we look at that, and so you said it briefly, and I wanted to make sure that we touched back that this work is happening at the middle school level as well in really innovative ways.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays, LBUSD family.
Hello.
I greet you in that manner because that's how we greet our students in the Mel Leadership Academy. We're all family in Long Beach Unified, and specifically in the Mel Leadership Academy, which has been instilled in our schools for over a decade now, doing tremendous work. I'm very proud to sit here as a product of Long Beach Unified School District, Edison, Marshall, Milliken, now working in LBUSD with our students. It's not work. It's something that I really enjoy. But our Mel Leadership Academy really instills a purpose in working with our young men of color in our middle schools and high schools. One of the major purposes is to work on some of the social emotional learning. SLE is an acronym that's really used across a lot of schools and educators right now. In the Mel Leadership Academy, that means a little bit more to us. It's not just social emotional learning, it's also social emotional literacy, social emotional love, social emotional leadership. So it goes deeper into what we really do with our students in our middle schools and high schools. To give you a little bit of background on the Mel Leadership Academy, our high schools have A through G classes, which are specifically ethnic studies courses. So all the work that we're talking about this morning is really interconnected. And it's great to see how we're able to impact more students, not just the 40 students that are in the Mel Leadership Academy at one school, but now we're also impacting other students through the Math Collaborative and through the Ethnic Studies program. So this is really, really all interconnected, but doing some of the similar work that we're very proud to do. as you see, some of the activities that we hold are a lot of the things that some of the other folks have been talking about. So it's exposure, it's collaboration, it's relationships, those important key aspects for our students that are sometimes missed in the home, sometimes missed, at school. But what, research shows is that social emotional learning, it really not only increases college rates, but also increases high school rates. It also helps students connect with more students in high schools. So this is really important, vital work. So we're really thankful for allowing you all, through your leadership, to continue to support this work. Again, back to these activities, you see students talking about race, the Rocket Academy, which connects them to the fire department. They're having police dialogues, which sometimes students were never really had a chance to talk about these things, yet they're seeing them on social media all the time. Wells Fargo Financial Literacy Program. So we're really exposing our students to an array of things that are so important to them. And not only are we hitting the cultural aspect, which comes through our ethnic studies curriculum and our global studies curriculums, which are in our middle schools. So I just want to thank you. I, myself, am doing this work with my colleagues, Alex Chavez and Cliff Parks. If you guys have any questions for us, Alex will be glad to answer them after I'm done myself. But I'd like to introduce you to Cliff Parks, which will talk a little bit more about the in-depth work that I talked to you about as we're talking about social emotional learning.
Lionel, I noticed there's one piece on here, this Dress for Success. Is that the piece that David Zaid was involved in helping the students learn how to tie ties?
Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Yes. And as I look around the room, everybody has been in this work, and it's so great to really be able to be working together. That's why I say family when I come in here, because we're all really adding to a little piece to this really huge work. And the Dress for Success has been so huge. Our students are doing it every Tuesday of the month. So they come to schools. The picture, Quinn, if you can go back to that circle. Yes. The circle there is really symbolic for the students, and they knew we were coming here to speak with you guys. And they're at Nelson Academy standing with their ties being worn. And they just want to remind you guys that circles matter. So as we're thinking about supporting these programs, not just the Mel Leadership Academy, but this work, they want to remind us that circles do matter, and spaces that allow us to go into this in-depth work really do matter. A lot of this work in a couple of years back was always after school, which tend to be very hard for our students because some of them were on athletics. Some of them had to go home and take care of their younger brothers and sisters. Having classes is out of this world. Matter of fact, some of our students have said this, and I said this last year when I was here, Mr. G, why don't we have this in elementary? That's something that, we will continue to work at. But again, we see the work transforming as we also have classes in our middle schools now. So just thankful to be here, and I wore the red tie for happy holidays and for the students.
Lionel, did you say to save our questions, or can we ask you a?
Oh, you can. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So you said we're over a decade in, Lionel. Were you around for the initiation of the?
Yes.
Okay. What have you noticed, if anything, about the differences with our young men of color here from where we were at more than 10 years ago versus the challenging sort of society and climate that we're in? Can you sort of speak to what are those different challenges, and or are things the same, Lionel, given that you've been around through the life of this program?
Yes, the very huge one is sense of belonging and engagement. So a lot of these students might not have been engaged. They were just going to school and taking these classes. Now they're a part of something that really matters in school. So to them, again, it goes back to that sense of love that we really don't speak about, and we're kind of like careful about that in educational settings, but that's really what that means to them. It means mentorship, it means brotherhood, it means love, it means that I belong to someone. So they're holding each other accountable. And that is, I could speak here for hours on, experiences that you guys wouldn't believe. I can't believe this isn't even part of a movie yet. So, 'cause that's how powerful it is.
Thank you.
Other questions? Cliff?
You want me to sing? I'll sing. Good afternoon. Huh? Yeah, come, yeah. Did you click it, kid? To inspire the uninspired. Every student, every day. We've been around this district for almost 20 years, myself and Mr. Chavez, working extensively with a group of students that are the most untraditional students, quote unquote. As intervention head counselors, it's been tireless work. Just to give an example, for the last 4 weeks, we've dealt with students, with at least 5 students that have lost one or both parents. So when we talk about extensive work and we talk about intensity, the intensity of what we do is specifically need conversations with these students. So along with everything that everybody else has said, we are in position where we're touching lives. I wake up every single morning at 3 o'clock in the morning to go work out, to break myself physically, spiritually, emotionally, but more importantly, mentally, because I know what I'm gonna have to face on days when I come to the district. So when I'm looking at, as an example, at one of the schools the other week, again, providing direct intensive services, I'm looking at a student look me in the eye as we're having a need conversation that we utilize and have over the course of time, utilizing social emotional learning, the model of that concept, self-management, self-responsibility, self-awareness, that kind of thing. And the student goes, Mr. Parks, I just lost my mother last night and I don't know what to do. When you're having a conversation with a student like that, it becomes personal because those are sentiments that we share as examples. So when we're dealing, myself and Mr. Chavez, when we're dealing with these students, it's not only about what they're dealing with at home, at school, but it's also what they're coming to school with. That's why about 8-9 years ago, Chris Dominguez, she said, your work is tireless work. It's the work of, the higher power, but it's about social emotional learning. She said, that's coming down the pipe. So 10 years ago, we knew that some of the things that we were doing, because again, having been around here for the last 18 years, it's been that type of work, right? And I'm gonna tell you right now, it is tireless work and it is passionate work. That's why we may come off as uneasy or edgy in a sense, because at the end of the day, when I have to look at a student that looks at me as the only example or the only reason why, it becomes very, very personal to me because of having shared some of those sentiments in my own personal life and that kind of thing. So when you look at a student and he says that, or you look at a student at another school, because we've been doing this for such a long time, there's something special about this kid. And as we continue to have the conversations, and he says, so talk to me, 8th grader. He says, I lost my dad and I lost my mom as an 8th grader. So I said, well, when did you? And we have the dialogue, and it's like when you're talking to the student, it's like he's looking to us for answers. When I look at a situation over at Cabrillo High School, I gotta commend Cabrillo High School because one of the things that they're doing over there is they're focusing on their safe and civil concept, school climate. And one of the things that they've always discussed or talked about was the concept of racial tension on the campus. And so the administration, Mr. Williams, Ms. Alexander, Ms. Cornell, they've identified groups of untraditional students that are leaders that could potentially create campus climate issues. And we meet with those kids on a weekly basis, and we have dialogues that are consistent with how they manage and or maneuver through the school climate and the school culture. I think the biggest thing with that is getting the support of the administration, Mr. Williams in particular, because he's sold out on helping those students and he's sold out on being a part of everything that they're doing. He has an incentive piece that he does with the students for their GPAs and that kind of thing. But we go in there and we work specifically with the intensity, because the kids are actually coming to school with a lot of a lot of issues, right? Our goal is to serve as models, as leaders of the community, as well as intricate leaders in the district, to make them realize or understand that there is a way in terms of their success. I mean, and again, these are your most at-risk or untraditional students, but our goal has always been, over the course of time, to get them to see themselves as a better version of themselves once they finish or go through the process. That being said, I'll open up for questions from Mr. Chavez.
I just have a comment. I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and everybody that's working with the non-traditional students or whatever. I know that for my father, he lost his father as a middle schooler, and his mom wasn't always around. And for him to have a male role model in his life was crucial. I don't think he would have gone the direction he did if he didn't have somebody in his life that he could talk to, somebody that could give him direction. So I know how important that is. I don't know if I'd be here if it wasn't for my dad having a mentor. So thank you so much for what you do. You may never know the difference you make in somebody's life.
Thank you. So all of the presenters today here, there were a few things that weaved through the comments that all of you shared. I'd love to get Mr. Chavez's perspectives on this. So one of those threads in the fabric that weaves through all of these interventions is the household, family, parent piece, whether it's, in this case, tragedy at home, or in other cases, the push-pull factor. So I'm wondering, because of the breadth and the scope and the energy it takes to engage in this work, how is the collaboration amongst you sort of worked out? Like, how are you communicating? What are you sharing?
So,
how are you leveraging sort of what your respective sort of target population and focus is across your respective intervention approaches?
It's funny, 18, 19 years ago, Chris gave us this confidence to come together. I didn't know Cliff. 19 years now. He's an ex-social worker, I'm an ex-PO. So we've taken that approach on working with the families. We're in their homes, we'll meet them at Starbucks. They have our cell phones. And you don't know how much a text at night means to them. Just a simple question, a simple good night, how you doing? Are you gonna be at school tomorrow? That's the approach that we've taken. Years back, we used to do parent workshops. One of the things that you can notice from all the presenters and ourselves, we have different tiers to interventions. We've been given the blessing to work with the most severe at-risk students. But that's the one thing that I've noticed from all the presenters. There's interventions for everything. Your high scholars, all the ones that are struggling just to get to school. And that's the population that we continue to work with.
And amongst you all, how is that communication, collaboration? I mean, I want to get a sense of how we're leveraging the great work that all of you are doing. I know it's happening. Just sort of walk me through it, or Quentin, or who can speak to sort of collaboration across the interventions? Was that the next slide? Yeah. Did I miss it?
That was the next slide. You're always ahead of the game. I like that.
I guess the last 2 pages stuck together for me.
Okay,
Sorry.
in the interest of time, let me just tell you that on October 21st, we had our first quarterly meeting, and we're actually calling it our quarterly meeting, and the purpose is up there on there. It's to build better collective efficacy across the district, provide opportunities for all of us to share programs so that we're not duplicating interventions and services and supports, but also to sort of communicate what we're doing across the district with our intervention programs amongst our teachers and our administrators. So it's a great opportunity just to share best practices and just to move the work forward. And also, we know in Long Beach, we always look at data. So at our next quarterly meeting, we'll look at some of the data from the first semester to make some determinations if we need to continue something, we need to shift and move. We always use the PDSA cycle as we move to make the programs better. So that's just kind of a quick and dirty. I know we're kind of pressed for time. And thank you.
You may want to take a 10-minute break before your next one, because it's going to be about an hour, correct, Mrs. Ashley? So if we want to take a 10-minute break, then come back.
Okay.
Before I lose this thought, something that came up actually earlier, thank you very much. And to all of you for the amazing work that you do. So this last slide talks about the amazing safety net that we hope to have around students and families, and each of you play a part in making that net stronger and make the holes in between smaller so that fewer students slip through. We know we're not perfect and we know there's always work to do, but the collaborative work that you are doing is an incredible net underneath our kids, so thank you for that work. So, Mr. Superintendent, I know in some of the earlier presentations, and this is something that has been brought up in several meetings about parents wanting to know what exists, what interventions exist at each schools. And I know it's an exhaustive list at each school if we were to pick out everything that's either in a school site plan.
Right.
But maybe there's a way within research or out of the level offices to come up with a Google form that we would send out to principals that has a listing of things like the Male Leadership Academy, even a DCAC program, all of these, the YAP, I know that's a district-wide program, but the Female Leadership Academy, but all of the different kinds of interventions and after-school programs, it's probably a list of 75 different things, I'm sure, if we were to put them into broad buckets. But to have a principal fill out the form and click all the boxes of the things that exist on their campuses. And that we house that somewhere so that when someone says, I'm interested in this school, they would go in and they would see potentially, because we get that a lot. So we have slides that have the listing of all of the different schools. But if there was a way to put that in a form kind of thing where they just fill out broadly, these are the main interventions. So that when DCAC or DLAC come to us and say what interventions are happening at schools, there's a place where we've housed some of the broad interventions.
So Quentin, you have a homework assignment. So you'll be working with the level
Actually
offices.
said research, but sorry,
But
it
he'll
was
be
not my
he'll coordinate. He'll be the thread that will bring everyone together because it's really two buckets: site specific and district. So exactly what you just said.
But just something easy, and then
Absolutely.
a school, they could click on a list, and it doesn't have to have links that go anywhere, but it gives kind of an overall idea that there are interventions for multiple groups of students at a school that they may be interested in sending their student. So that was it.
We really appreciate the presentations today. It gives a scope of the work that is occurring in this district and how impactful and important that work is to certain segments of our student populations. And some of that work is it's not on the level that we see other programs maybe at times, but it's so critical to a number of our students, and the work that you folks are doing is extremely important. So we thank you very much for being here and giving us a rundown on that work. Thank you all very much.
We'll come back at